Picked up a new injury this summer. Haven't been able to flint knap for a couple of months. This type of injury makes it really hard to rotate your hand over into an open palm kind of position. It's a little bit surprising that your bicep controls all of that, but I managed to snap the bicep tendon that comes down, attaches to your arm. They had to put a second cut in my bicep up here to reach up, pull the bicep tendon back down, and then reattach it to the bone. So it's been several months healing. Not a fun thing. I don't recommend it to anybody, but the doctor said we're good to go for doing some light stuff, so I'm going to spend some time on some obsidian here, get back into it. At any rate, I've got a doctor's note to flint knap, so I'm taking that and running with it. While I was out on injury reserve, I went and found a new obsidian source that I'd been researching and done some reading on. So I went out there, and this stuff is just spread for several square miles. I was quite amazed by it. The original source is long gone. It's mostly left in kind of this glacial till soil, so you just kind of have to pick it out. And everywhere I got out of the car to walk the surface and look for fresh cobbles, the ground was just littered with debitage everywhere. And originally I thought, well, maybe it's the soil breaking it up. But as I looked, there would be other cherts that were clearly flint knapped, bulbs of percussion, jaspers. So I opted to not disturb any of the surface finds, instead do a little bit of road cut hunting for it. They had just had some fresh rains, in fact some torrential rains in the area that had washed many of the roads out, and the equipment had just been through and plowed up all the roads and fixed the washes and everything like that. So there was a good opportunity to find lots of these bigger cobbles in the roadside cuts themselves, which was great. Worked out really well that way. Most of them, when you walk around the surface, are golf ball sized, some baseball sized ones, and then some of these big ones came out of the road cut. Of course, it's only worth napping if you can find the biggest, squarest, worst rock of the bunch and start there. So this cobble doesn't have any significant flaws. Its biggest problem is just it's more of a cube than a spall of any kind. Lots of square edges around. A little bit of damage in this one corner over here. So we'll break into it, take a lot of nice flakes off we can use for arrowheads later. Just try to take the point out of the core here. Spend a little time practicing some reduction. It's been a while. So with all the square edges, you'll notice I start working from one side where there was a little bit of a natural platform. I'm trying to avoid getting over to that kind of crushed up area till the very end, hopefully. Hopefully by then we've got good enough depth we can kind of undercut any problems that are going to be in that corner. So mostly I'm working from one side, and yeah, we'll get to the other side soon. So I did that boar hunting video in an unintentional collaboration with a good friend of mine, Joseph Carter, and picked up a lot of subscribers off of his version of the video. And I realized those people who are new and coming in maybe don't know a lot about flint knapping, and traditionally my audience has been, flint knappers that already kind of have a bead on what's happening. So those of you who have been here a long time, forgive me, but I'm going to spend just a little bit of time explaining kind of what's happening here, and I know you already understand this, but for the new people, flint knapping is really just about edges, and so we call this initial piece of flint knapping reduction or spalling, and all we do is try to hit on corners that have angles. So you'll see this over and over, even when we're at the spalling stages, the first stages. Later we'll progress into some, kind of middle stages, and then eventually there'll be some pressure flaking stages near the end. But it's all just about scale. Spalling is just trying to find these little edges that are on the downside, or making little places we can hit an edge, and then that's what removes a flake when we strike it. Sometimes the strike is more or less straight down, sometimes it's towards the rock, and so angles play a big role here. But it doesn't matter what scale we're working at, it's all the same basic principle. And we're trying to take something that's big and get control of it and start to make it appear the way we want it to appear. So you'll notice I'm just finding little edges, little places where I can push those kinds of flakes off. So again, this thing has a lot of square edges, and rather than zigzag those, I like to shoot across them if I can. Take that corner and use it as a ridge. So that's another thing for the new guys. These flakes like to follow ridges, so we hit the edge where there's a ridge, and the flake will tend to follow those ridges. So here I am again setting up to use one of these outer edges along one of these square corners here, and drive flakes along it like that. Sometimes you have to zigzag, but if you can get at it, it's in my opinion better to drive flakes across those edges and just make them thinner that way. You lose less width.
Oh.
Since it's my first time back, I need to kind of try out all my tools, see where I'm at. So yeah, we got the bison horn out for a little bit, but this is a really good obsidian. I was finding out using the direct percussion with a sandstone, but man, the bison horn just kept blowing it up. Either it wasn't the right tool for this particular obsidian, or I'm just out of practice enough. It's an issue, so it didn't stay out for very long. Normally it's just so good on obsidian, so it's just me out of practice, I'm sure. And of course, whenever I get the bison horn out, Lily Dog has to come over and see what's going on. She likes the smell of it. I know. Smells disgustingly good, huh? Well, while we've got the disruption, just as well pull out the tine punch and have a go at that. See how we can handle it. See if we can handle it. Get down. You're going to cut your paws up there. And for the new guys, you can see it's still just more of the same. It's just on a little smaller scale, right? There's little tiny low spots, and we just put the punch onto those ridges that are on those low spots and try to push another flake down a ridge. And just rinse and repeat. It's just on a smaller scale than it was when we had the rock out. Oh, that's the flake I need right there. Fluted. Sure enough does. Figured that out 20 minutes ago, dude. Buttercup catch that other mouse. I know there's another one. Again, for our new friends, this is just what we start to call pressure flaking. I am using a moose antler tine. You don't have to use moose antler. There are all kinds of options. Most people use copper for this kind of pressure flaking, as we call it, but it's still just the same process, more or less. We find low spots and we push flakes into them. They run better on ridges, but also you don't always have to have a ridge. If there's a high area, you can push into that. But it's just a continuation of a theme here where we're taking the, as they call it, center line. So you can start to imagine a center line now that we're whittled down to a fairly flat piece. Along that edge, there's a center line, and wherever the center line dips a little bit lower, we can attempt to push a flake, is the general idea. Now, of course, I'm way oversimplifying all of it, but that really is just the general idea here. There's just variations of that where sometimes if you're not below center line, you have to adjust your center line and do all those kinds of things. But for the most part, that's just how flint knapping goes. Top to bottom, beginning to end. You're just always trying to push low spots off and develop a center. There's also a little bit of shaping going on here. Sometimes when I rub that edge, I'm doing what's called turning the edge, where I'm trying to make one side lower below the center line. But sometimes it's just to give the point a final shape as we're getting closer to the end. This part is always just super slow though, very tedious, so I always speed these up as quick as possible, so hang on for warp speed. So again, for our new friends, this is where things take a little bit of a different direction. This is notching. There's all kinds of different notches you can do. I'm going for a corner notch here. But really, this is just the fine art of finding ways to break your point. You spend all this time, you get a nice little triangle, And this is where I tend to break them all the time. Maybe we'll get lucky today. So this thing actually came out very, very thin. This obsidian held together beautifully. So really it was just a matter of taking some tool that I could fit in there and driving the notches back as far as I could get them, just flake by flake. Didn't have to punch or do much of that kind of work here. That's pretty much it. Felt pretty good getting back into it. Here in the sun you can see it's got some nice grain to this obsidian. It came out really thin. I know. It's not refined around the edges and yada yada, but cut me a little slack here. Just coming back. It turned out just fine. I was quite pleased with this obsidian. I will be spending some more time with it in the coming weeks during my rehab.
What are you doing?
Just work on my new point.
Are you super gluing it?
No. You like it?
Here, let me see it.
You can look at it.
No, yeah, I want to hold it.
You can look at it.
Did you super glue it to your finger?
No.
Okay.
Probably not.
Let me see.
No.
Let me see it.
You are a monster.
Yeah, but you're a fake.